Welcome, everybody, for another episode of Based on a True Story, a Monster House production. My name is Matthew Baxter.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karen Stollznow.
And I'm Blake Smith, the old hobo in the basement.
Yeah.
This is a movie. Woof, woof, woof.
Well, I don't think a lot of people would have expected us to do this movie, to be honest.
No.
Why? I think this is right up our alley, down our alley.
Oh, I do too, for subject matter, but the way that this movie was portrayed was a little confusing, I think, because the movie itself is not based on a true story, but it has enough elements here and enough misleading qualities even in the trailer alone that I think we need to address it.
I love the trailer. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, I think it's in the same vein as Picnic at Hanging Rock, where there's this whole kind of folklore and mythology surrounding the movie, with enough people going into it thinking this is a true story or this is based on a true story. And as you say, right at the outset, they're presenting this as based on a true story. So yeah, I think this is within the purview of our show. Sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I feel it's justified covering. I would add one difference, though, between this and Picnic at Hanging Rock, and that is this movie was
quality.
Terrible.
And the school marm was scarier.
Yeah.
Very scary. Yeah.
So
it is, different films, but I still think that there were some aspects of this film that were interesting and some nice scares along the way. But overall, it's definitely not the best film that we've looked at so far.
I think we should look at one thing. I think we should look at how long we can go without actually mentioning what the film is.
I was actually going
Maybe we can start with something about that. You can flash a picture or something, because that's a good point, Matt.
I was going to say, actually, this might be a wonderful segue. If I could stop coughing.
I love wonderful segues.
What really drew me to this film was the trailer, which is, it stunned me when I saw it. I was like, wow, this is stuff I'm very interested in. And This is creepy as hell. Could we just play the trailer? I think the theater would probably, the manufacturers would probably appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't think they would mind. Yeah, well, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so like just insert the trailer here. And so we'll do a little break.
What you are about to hear is real. It has not been edited or enhanced. It is the voice of Ruth Baxter. This voice was recorded in August 2003. Ruth Baxter died in 1987. Electronic voice phenomenon, EVP, is the process by which the dead, through sound and image, communicate with the living through the static and white noise of modern electronic devices. What we've all hoped to be true is in fact possible. Our loved ones can reach us.
Mr. Rivers, do you want to hear your wife?
But if they can come through, who else can come through?
It is one thing to contact the dead. It is another thing to meddle, and you are meddling. Oh my God.
The subject of some movies is so disturbing that those who experience them will never be the same again.
No!
White noise.
So I mean, that's super creepy. But and those audio bits are largely real EVPs, although misattributed, according to the notes that I've read on them.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because go ahead, Karen.
Sorry. I was just going to say, it is misleading because watching that trailer, I thought this is going to be a good film, and that these recordings were of characters who were going to be in the movie, and that just wasn't the case at all. I really don't know why they did it that way. It just doesn't make
because
sense.
you just heard Blake's reaction. It creeped him out when he saw this trailer. He's like, I got to see this movie, and that's exactly why they did it this way. But it is
but it
interesting.
was misleading.
It was. I mean, the thing is, they started out, what you're about to hear is absolutely real, and it wasn't. And that's the other strange thing. That wasn't Ruth Baxter, and it wasn't saying...
No relation, Matt?
Anyway, I have bad memories about old Ruth. But no, the thing is that it makes a great point. The trailer makes a great point in the sense that it plays something and tells you what it says when that's not actually what they believe it says. So it shows you how malleable EVPs actually are, and they're not a good form of communication if that's what they are.
But I think we should also start out by saying that we previously have done a Monster Talk Live episode on electronic voice phenomena, and that if viewers have not watched that, they should go and watch that first, where we go into a deep dive into EVPs, what they are, and the kind of folklore surrounding that.
Now, it's interesting because the actual EVPs, I mean, there's a lot of different versions of this communication using devices like this. But with EVPs specifically, and we didn't really touch on this completely, is that it's something you only hear on the playback. You don't hear it live.
For the most
and that's why you need to go back and listen to that episode multiple times to see if you can hear any EVPs in it. But and that's
they did it.
Depends on the device.
Yeah.
Well,
if it's traditional EVP where you're recording on a device and talking, then you have to hear it on the replay.
Yeah, you don't normally hear ghost hunters hear something. Did we get that on the tape? It's normally they're listening to it in playback. They make adjustments on the audio.
Unless it's like a Frank's box or something where you're listening and as soon as you think you're recording, and as soon as you hear something, then
this movie
evidence.
played with those ideas a lot. I mean,
it did. It wasn't traditional EVP. I mean, because even when you go back and talk about Radave and Jurgensen and all those guys, they weren't doing traditional EVP. And we've lost Blake. There he is.
Nope, just try not to cough so much. I've got this persistent cough. So.
I see. Okay. Well,
less editing.
Well, I think that this has really just been a changing thing. I mean, you can talk about traditional. I think that's a changing notion, a changing concept along the way.
Sure. Let's just say a point of argument for some would be
and
that an EVP is made with a device where you talk to an empty room. There's no radio playing. There's no broken radio playing. There's no TV white noise. There's nothing like that. There's nothing broadcasting. It's a silent room that you're talking to. You're talking in an empty room. And then you play it back and hear stuff. That is more of what ghost hunters will see EVP as. And this,
I want to add here too, with this movie coming out in 2005, I think that this was really the heyday for EVP, for that kind of thing. I mean, it's still absolutely around, but these were the early days of
it was catching
ghost
fire.
Hunters, and I mean, these paranormal TV shows and ghost hunting groups. I mean, this was, they really were onto something hot at that time, but even though it's still around.
This place, this 2005 spot when this was made is so funny because there's cell phones, but they're not smartphones. There's computer tech, but it's on big old CRTs. It's not flat screen.
Right.
And like you can say, we're on the verge of a big shift in technology and how that's going to affect so many things, including paranormal research.
All VCRs and
this is all analog. It's like analog and old equipment, and he's doing digital conversion, recording stuff for the computer.
It is dated to watch.
It's dated. I really enjoyed that part of it. It was my favorite part was the old equipment. But we should talk about the plot, I guess. The movie's White Noise.
White Noise. That's okay.
White Noise. Yeah.
Thought we were still on the quiet ones for a moment.
So right at the start, we'll have a big banner saying White Noise.
And
picture
I'm
from
going
it.
to immediately start talking about the problems with this film. So if the film had taken this idea from the trailer and it had been like a paranormal investigator looking into a case and getting messages, that would be one thing. But it's the protagonist is this unbelievable architect character. He's super successful. He's
his
on
wife is unbelievable.
This is his second wife. This is his trophy wife. She's a successful author. The kind of author, when you have a bestseller and they've got you like on a press junket and they're doing all the press and everybody's excited to hear about your book. So she's like,
and she's really
I don't
young.
know, she's a J.K. Rowling's type, I guess. Like that is the idea that she's a mystery writer or something, but.
Yeah, novelist of some kind.
Yeah. But he's got a first wife as well. And the first time I saw this, I thought that was his sister. It took me a rewatch to realize that's his first wife and that's their kid together.
Well, they kind of imply too at some point that he had mistreated her, or in the first marriage.
You said he wasn't the best husband.
Yeah. So in some ways, with all of this going on, it almost feels like a kind of punishment.
Maybe he died before the movie started. This is all hell. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And then what did we do wrong, though, is what my question is. What
to have to watch it?
Have to watch it again.
Yeah. Damn that M. Night Shyamalan.
It was my
even when
first
his name's
time
not
for
on
watching it. I didn't watch it when it came out, so it was.
Did you? I found it like it started out. I was interested, and then as it progressed, my interest declined, and my patience shrank as well. So I'm dying.
It had moments where throughout the movie where it was pretty darn good, and it was kind of fun and everything, and then it just flat out went off the rails. But I do want to mention.
That's why I think we should go through the plot, because we're going straight to the end.
Now I do want to talk about this author, and first they referred to her as best-selling author. And then right after that, she's international author. And then right after that, she's internationally renowned author. And like every time they addressed her, they had a different sort of honorific in front of it on what she was. And it's funny because, I'm sitting next to best-selling author Karen Stollznow during this, and there were several times I had to ask the opinion of international author Karen Stollznow, and as we were going through it, and paper, internationally known author Karen Stollznow was quick to give me good answers. So it was just kind of funny listening to how they were building her up to be this this big
I think they were
personality.
Really trying to present them
at
as
what, like 22 years old or however
couple.
she was.
Well, she seemed younger than him, that's for sure. But I think they were really trying to present them as very happy and very much in love. And of course, we discovered that she is pregnant.
Right.
So, which adds to the drama and the tragedy of her dying, which I think her death is still a little mysterious. I mean, we find out that she's drowned, but it's not really explicit. I think it's...
Yeah, it's a mystery. Mysterious. I think they were trying to leave it be a little blurry, and it was.
Yeah, that she may still be alive.
I have
on some plane.
Yeah, well, I have firm ideas about the ending now that I did not have before. So
okay.
But
maybe
we'll
it
hold
needs
off on
a
that.
second watch.
It's not worth it, but yeah.
The plot, I guess we should get back to that, and how she dies in this accident, and then he's getting stalked by this fellow, and we find out that his name is Raymond Price.
Ray Price. Yep.
Yeah, and I immediately thought, as soon as I heard his name, is this a reference to Harry Price, because he's British?
Yeah.
Like Harry, the famous former one of the earliest ghost hunters, I guess. So I thought that might have been a kind of nod to him anyway.
This is played by Ian McNeice, who's sort of a portly British character actor. A lot of people may recognize him from I think it was the second Ace Ventura movie where he played.
Everybody saw the second Ace Ventura.
Yeah. It was.
Well, I will say, when it comes to realism, that when you see his house and you see the equipment everywhere, I mean, that is a real portrayal of these kinds of people. When you look at someone like Frank Sumption, who created the Frank's Box, that's pretty much what his workspace looked like, his office looked like. I mean, just stuff and equipment everywhere, a real mess. So I thought that was kind of realistic.
He was shockingly well organized for an obsessive, though, wasn't he? I mean, he had like notebooks and everything was referenced and indexed.
Yes.
So, and we're still talking about McNeese's character. So, McNeese introduces Michael Keaton, Jonathan Rivers, to this idea of EVP. He comes out of the blue and says that Keaton's or Rivers' wife has been communicating with her. He at this point in the movie, Jonathan doesn't even know if she's dead or alive because they haven't found a body. But
she's missing,
right. Raymond Price tells him, no, she's dead. I've been getting communications from her, and so
which kind of makes him a suspect.
It does. It does. It really does. There's a whole bunch of like really ambiguous, you'd probably go to jail if this really happened kind of stuff going on in this film.
Yeah.
He's a suspect.
Anyway, so he goes on this, he also becomes an obsessive trying to find out what happened to his wife. And then I don't want to jump too fast into this, but I also want to spare people the pain. Basically, his wife is communicating to him from the other side, but not about herself. She's warning him about other people who haven't died and are about to or have something, giving him an opportunity to save. And I think, you think at this point, it's going to become like a hero movie. He's going to use his wife on the other side to help save people, and it's going to be a feel good.
Matt made a good joke about this when I said, he's a superhero.
Oh yeah, I just imagined him going, "I'm Batman."
Oh, but, that's good. That is good.
I did see parallels at that point when that started happening to the Mothman and Mothman prophecies.
Yeah,
that these are these predictions of things that are about to happen or may happen, that can be thwarted, or the person can be saved.
The whole feel of the movie kind of started feeling a bit like that.
Yes, very much so.
I think it really lost its way though, because
yes, also
it's incorporating EVP theory, and then it's kind of going the way of predictions and psychic abilities, and there is a psychic who appears in the movie too. And was she blind? I think she was. It was.
She was.
It was
blind.
Really. Yeah, she was very much acting like she couldn't see because she kept looking like away from him.
She could see in a psychic sense.
No, like they never said she was blind, but I got the same impression. There's some really weird direction.
She just wasn't making eye contact with him.
Yeah, she was using echolocation.
Yeah. But I think that that kind of started going the route of
that goes location. That's
paranormal, and kind of more the way of things like Ouija boards that she's warning him against communicating with his wife, because it's not his wife; it's a demon or it's some other creature that's trying to lure him in. And it's just really muddying all of these different theories at this point and getting confusing.
Yeah, maybe the best compliment I could say about this film is it almost, at moments, feels like it's on a highway circling a city called Good Film, and never can quite find the exit to get in there. Right? It tries. It gets real close, and then it goes the wrong way.
Yeah.
So I just there's this subplot about. Or maybe it's the primary plot. I'm not clear on that. There's good people who are dead, and there's these weird entities on the other side.
Three of them.
At least, right. They are very much like the 3 Men in Black. They're shadowy
shadow people. Yeah.
And it feels like I thought that when I saw the trailer, like I have a memory of them talking about dark entities or like being in that. I know that there is lore around that. There's some different specific language I thought was in here that's not. And it's around this idea of that when you contact the other side, there's certainly people that but there's also these other things.
Well, I want
literally crying from coughing.
I want Matt to talk about that too, because that's not really what I've encountered. And we're sort of going to the end of the movie at this point, too, and the statistics that they put up at the end about negative, harmful, destructive messages. But Matt, you kind of mentioned something to me a few days ago about dealing with that negative side of EVPs and people who go in search of those or encounter those.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you that know that we did a little bit of a April Fool's paranormal prank on a local paranormal group years ago, and convinced them that a house we were in was haunted, and they came in to investigate. Every EVP they found was very threatening. And I remember him saying to me, "This place is worse than Amityville," or something like that. This place is just like Amityville, and I'm like, it's a hoax as well, But everything they found, and there were no spirits there. I mean, it was just a location. But we fed them a story, they believed it, and every EVP they got was threatening. But I do want to kind of use that as a little bit of a springboard back to the trailer really quickly, because let's talk about that first. Let me see if I can find it here.
Well, yeah, you've got a real mixed bag of messages. You have a message from this Ruth Baxter saying, "I will see you no more."
Mm-hmm.
And then you have another message from a Stanley Searle saying, "I love you." And then a message from someone called Angela Brown, who says, "Get out of my house." And that apparently she died in 1968. So you've got a real range of different messages there.
Well, and that "I will see you no more." That's really what I want to talk about here. And I want to make sure that we can hear this. So what they say is this actually was not Ruth Baxter, who died in 1987. This actual EVP was gotten from a lighthouse on the East Coast, and they believe it's what they say, like a Civil War era person. And it's let me see if I can get the exact quote of what they believe it says.
I wonder why they would repurpose that then. It just seems totally irrelevant.
Yeah. What they say is, "I was seeing the war." That's what they say. So let's see if it's "I will see you no more" or "I was seeing the war," because those are two completely different messages.
I will see you no more.
So what do you think?
It's difficult to
could be
really
either
hear
one.
anything. Yeah, I think it's like one of those things where you hear a recording of something and you've got people from different camps saying, "Oh, it sounds like this," or "It sounds
It's
like
a
that."
gold dress, and that's the bottom line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the thing is EVPs are completely unreliable. And the other, and this movie, I know that Karen and I were having quite a conversation about a lot of the good points that this movie sort of peeled back, and so you could really get a good look at them. And one of those is you got the Class A EVP, which everything in this movie would have been a Class A EVP. But many times as we're watching the movie, the regular dialogue, we're going, what did she say? What was that? And we'd have to rewind it, listen to it again several times before we could kind of figure out with context what the actor was saying. Can you get more Class A than dialogue from the actor in a movie? That's recorded on professional equipment. That should be as clear as a bell. And we were having to stop and rewind. What did she say? So many times. And I remarked, it was a Class A. We ought to be able to hear it.
Well, I do think
the EVPs in the movie were easier to hear than the dialogue sometimes. So
I think the EVPs were very kind of true to life. They were not clear. Certainly at times you could hear John's wife saying, John, things like that. I love you, or some kind of message like that. But most of the time it was very difficult to hear, very subjective. And I think that's kind of true to form with EVPs, where if they're not priming you on the screen by saying this is what they're saying, you can't tell what's being said. And I think it's a product of the fact that it's not someone trying to communicate with us.
And it's a movie, so I know they have to be successful, but for both of them to be like detuning their televisions and suddenly picking up images of the dead. I mean, they're getting better images of the dead than I could get of unscrambled Cinemax porn in the 90s. So That's
Oh my
amazing.
God. Hang on a second here, Blake. I was telling Karen that when we first got cable, and it was those old wood grain looking cable boxes,
Yes.
that we had basic cable. I could
Yep.
switch to the channel where Cinemax was, and I could record it. And then I had to get good at watching those movies, because they looked like this movie.
It's a skill. It's a skill. What?
So
And yeah,
go
well, I
ahead,
think that
Karen.
reminds me of what we were talking about in the live episode, where you have someone like Frank Sumption saying it's a language. You have to learn it. You have to be tuned to it. You
And
have to.
Chris Moon saying that he is one of 30 people on the planet able to translate this and interpret it.
Yeah. So I do think that there's that kind of element there where, and also like speaking in tongues or the interpretation of tongues, that there are people who are experts at doing this.
Yeah,
So,
it's a really interesting thing. But yeah, the whole Cinemax thing, that's exactly what this movie was like watching that.
So when you study this kind of audio over and over again to try to get meaning out of it, does that make you some sort of statistician?
well, but speaking of that, I think it is interesting the way that spoiler, of course these shows are always about spoilers, but where Raymond Price dies, and it's almost like
Spoiler.
it's almost like John takes over the mantle of doing his work.
Mhm.
Yes.
And communicating with these people, and he really does become obsessed with this, and you can see he's neglecting his son and ignoring him and ignoring his job and avoiding appointments and meetings and things, and he's just at home doing this 24/7, and he's obsessed with it. And I do again see parallels with real life, where the people that Matt and I have dealt with over the years have just given up whatever it is that they were doing and just focused on hunting for EVPs. It's
Okay.
really very sad.
Now, this other woman that was also kind of his partner in obsession, I thought it was very interesting when.
She was Sarah Tate was her name.
Yeah, Sarah Tate, Deborah Kara Unger. It's kind of an interesting thing because when Jonathan starts getting obsessed to the point of, I'm hearing this and she's trying to tell me that I can help people. So nothing was insane to Sarah all the way through until he says, oh, I'm getting messages from my wife, which is normal to her, but that I can help people. Whoa, you're insane. What do you mean? You need to take a break. What? How?
I think that those are blind spots, just as we see with a lot of believers. They'll believe in one area of the paranormal and then poo-poo other areas that don't really make sense. You think that, oh, well, if you believe this, then you'd absolutely believe that. And that's not necessarily the case. But I think that was just kind of, script writing really to make it.
Well, I asked this question while we were watching the movie. And when I asked it, Karen was like, he crossed an invisible line right there, And after I stopped laughing my ass off, it was like, yeah, okay, I get it, So, but that was just very strange how nothing was crazy to her until he was going to be a hero. And then it's like, oh, she's
so
not trying to give you messages.
Yeah, so there's this strange twist in the plot towards the end where it turns out that not everything he's seeing is from the dead. Like some of the things he's seeing seem to be
the future.
They seem to be images of the future, right? Quite literally,
yeah.
and he's literally seeing video of the future, and he shows this
Sarah having that accident.
Yeah, and so is it Deborah? Is that the friend that he has from Raymond's office? Is that the name of the lady?
Yes, Sarah.
Deborah. Yeah, Sarah's her name in the
show. Okay,
Deborah's
sorry. Deborah's the actress. So Sarah. Sarah, he's showing Sarah herself in a hospital bed, and
saying
so
it hurts.
Yeah, and so they decided to do some kind of experiment. Did you understand what the experiment was? Because all I know is they went to her apartment. She took some sleeping pills, said, "I hope I wake up," and then he's like, "Don't worry, I'm going to be here." What the hell was she taking?
I know.
Why? It's like,
and then he went and took something too.
Yeah,
And,
he had a headache. He had a headache.
Yeah,
So
I thought that was probably acetaminophen.
he did this, which is the universal sign for I'm going to go to my bathroom and find something for my headache. So
yeah,
Well, and
and
at that
I
point
assume so, but
too-
yeah, there was just a lot of pill taken all of a sudden.
At that point too, where he opens up the cabinet and you see the mirror. Matt was convinced that there was going to be a demon or something behind him.
Yes, me too. This movie had so many jump scares, many of them audio, most of them pointless. Like there's a scene where he goes to a stop sign
And
they
so
immediately
telegraphed.
Yeah, and they immediately cut to like an 18-wheeler blowing the horn and just flying through the intersection. I'm like, what? Why was that? It was just to startle you. There's no plot reason for that at all.
Just to put you off. And but I think that I did think that was confusing too, where he goes home with her, and I mean, it seemed to me like it was really bringing on the fact that she was going to attempt suicide, because he's giving her tablets, and presumably sleeping pills. But it seemed like, well, that's going to be the thing that's going to put her in a state where she could do something that she wouldn't otherwise do. So it really seemed like they were bringing it on by doing that. It
reminded me of the movie.
Part.
Have you seen the movie Flatliners, where they induce their own deaths so they can see the other side and then come back? Yeah. Don't try this at home.
Which people have requested for goats as well.
I would be willing to read it. I've got some weird memories of that one, but yeah.
I haven't seen the remake.
Nor have I. But so anyway, she takes these sleeping pills. He goes to the bathroom and gets them for his headache, and he comes back and she's standing on the rail. And I thought for sure he's going to go save her. Instead, she falls off, plummets. I don't know, what was that, 20 stories into a glass window and lives? Wow.
Yes, that was really strange. But maybe she was just so scared at having seen that image of herself, heralding the future, that he was just helping her to get home and take something so she could get a good night's sleep. I don't know. It was really
maybe, but I mean, it seemed
not
visually
well
like I think the demons were supposed to be affecting her, like maybe taking control. But she
I think you're right.
Like the lights were on, but nobody's home. She didn't seem to be aware of what was happening.
You notice they did not have in this movie the montage where they're in the library or on the internet figuring out who the three demons are.
Yep.
They did not have that at all.
Yeah.
I think the demons were kind of in the background. So if he would turn away for a minute, suddenly the demons were there.
Would swing on by.
The demons, I think, were really in the background and weren't, always there. And there was that scene too where I wasn't quite sure if they were the demons at his house, at John's house, or if it was cops turning up.
Oh, that was in the building.
Blending them.
That was in the building when he had met up with the serial killer, who was obviously,
I think this is probably a good point to talk about how the movie just really went off the rails towards the end.
As soon as she went off the rail, the movie went off the rails.
Totally. Well put.
Yeah, I couldn't. I didn't really realize until later on that the serial killer was a construction worker and was a colleague of John's. I didn't think that was really explicit. I had to kind of put that together.
Yeah.
And so apparently he was being controlled by these demons to do what he was doing.
Well, and you wouldn't have known to look for the very few breadcrumbs that they left. You wouldn't have known to look for them because the movie was not about a serial killer.
Well, tell us what one of those was. It was very obscure.
Oh yeah, when the lights go out in the elevator and it stops and it loses power when he's in there with that other guy, and the guy's like, "Oh, is this the Chevy your budget?" And all that kind of stuff that they were going back and forth with. When it opens up again, and that was exact. His voice was just like that.
Well played.
I worked on that for about a half an hour before the show to make sure I nailed it. Now, when the doors finally opened, the guy was standing there going, "You guys all right?" or whatever it was he said. I didn't practice his voice, but
I'd forgotten about him by the end of the movie.
But yeah, so it was boom right on by. It was not a point that you're thinking I need to remember that for some reason.
No.
But they had it there so Jonathan Rivers could have flashbacks to those like 2 times he saw the guy.
Yeah, it's very because that site, that construction site, is where his wife's body was found, and he never goes, that's weird. Her body was found next to a construction site where we're doing the remodel. No, that doesn't come up. Nobody says that, but that is apparently what's going on.
The
which
cops
would
don't
make him a
make the
suspect again. Yeah, I mean, there's so many reasons to think he was probably the real killer. No, I don't know. But like the big reveal at the end is that these three demons, who apparently don't have the power to do anything corporally, have been guiding this serial killer to kill women in and around the city where John lives, including his wife. And he gets into a fight with the guy and dies off camera. We don't even see it happen. And then
apparently that was the demons doing it. Apparently the demons broke his arms and legs and threw him
off. Off
the rails again.
His arms are all messed up, like awfully messed up.
It's like a Family Guy kind of.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And then the killer dies, and then we go to the funeral where his family, what's left of it, sees him off to the other side. And then there's two weird scenes there at the end. One is his ex-wife and her husband and their kid hear the radio come on, and you hear John apologizing over the radio, and everybody seems real happy about that.
Yeah, the little kid smiles.
Yeah, he's sorry, yay! And then
the kid had said to him earlier too. He said, "Oh, you're gonna be okay, Dad," and he promised him, "Oh yes, everything's gonna be fine," and that's not borne out. And it almost felt ominous to me. It felt to me like maybe they would be coming after them next, after his son, his ex-wife.
There is actually a sequel, but it's not about that, thank God.
Yeah.
But the other thing is Sarah's character is in a wheelchair. She's got a broken arm. Her legs messed up. And then they pull back and show she's just been left sitting out in the middle of the road. There's nobody to push her. She's got one arm that works. It's very peculiar. I don't know why she's there. They imply that
are they saying that she's killed? Are they saying I couldn't?
Yeah, because it was like she does this, and that's the end of the scene. We don't know what happens to her.
Oh, it's pretty much exactly like the ending of Hamilton.
Oh yeah. It's shot for shot.
But I do think that Matt and I have talked about this, that the movie itself raises a good point or a lesson, that in chasing after the dead and trying to communicate with people who've passed, that you can really neglect the people in your life. And I think that that's not necessarily what they were aiming for with the movie.
But it is a real thing. Yeah,
they really demonstrated it.
I mean, for example, we spoke in the Monster Talk Live episode about Frank Sumption and how he originally was trying to communicate with his deceased son. And that's exactly what we find Jonathan Pryce doing in this movie, that his 12-year-old son had passed and he was receiving messages from him. And but I mean, that's just really what we've encountered a lot of people who just become obsessed with the paranormal, whether it's a Ouija board or EVPs or psychics, mediums, whatever. And they really kind of lose their lives and their connections with the living by becoming obsessed.
Yeah. People don't realize how real that aspect is. There was one woman, I mean, being here at kind of ground zero for the Frank's box, I definitely got exposed to a lot of people who had become addicts. One of them, this woman, got the best reception to speak to her son who had died in the basement with the Frank's box. And she got to the point where she was afraid to leave the basement because he might have something to say to her. So she spent all her time in the basement of her house. Now, that is not healthy, bereavement period there. And it became very common during that decade, of the naughties. It was really a big thing.
Think about the psychic hotlines. How many people, they start getting linked. That's not all about, hearing the future. A lot of that is about talking to the dead.
Right.
And, getting communication from the other side. And if you can't process the grief and you can't let go, the hope that there is somebody on the other side waiting for you and that you might be able to talk to them without having to cross over yourself. I mean, that's got to be very compelling if that's a belief that you really hold. So my heart goes out to people who have that situation.
Oh yeah, you've got to have compassion for them. And I also think to some point, I don't know if we mentioned this in the last show or not, but it's just kind of hitting me that a lot of these kinds of communication are a kind of grief hallucination, not a traditional one where you might see the deceased out of the corner of your eye, but certainly where you think you're hearing their voice, whether it's through a device or just in the air, that it's just some kind of bereavement or grief hallucination where they're expecting that person to be around in one way or another and end up starting to hear them on through a computer or through a television or whatever kind of device you have around.
Well, and I think it's kind of an advanced grief hallucination because of the fact that a normal grief hallucination will catch you by surprise. You're not looking for it when it happens. With this, all your attention is focused on it happening. And so I think that it's you're really helping it along in that sense.
But it may not always start that way. I mean, certainly for people who do this kind of thing anyway. But I think that there might be times where someone listens to the radio and thinks that they hear a voice coming through.
Well, do you remember
looking for it?
Yeah. Do you remember that the beginning of the movie starts with a quote from Thomas Edison? And they didn't even get the quote right, but
and it's misdated as well.
Misdated and everything else. But there's something that was super interesting that was around that quote. And I'm trying to look it up here really quickly. I mean, he was in this interview, he was talking about a lot of kind of crazy stuff. But one of them was his disdain over the not new age, but the spiritualism, metaphysical approach. And I'm wanting to see here exactly what it was, but it was something along the lines of, these people are hypnotizing themselves, into believing this contact, and there's nothing scientific about it. And I think that he's spot on with saying that there's nothing scientific about it, but at the same time they are hypnotizing themselves.
While you look it up, this is a good point. The film, one of the disservices it does, I think, is, I know it's a work of fiction, but it implies that EVP is basically a science. Like it's reliable.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
And you can. They do a little montage of him getting nothing, and it's like, but he doesn't give up. And when it goes from nothing to something, it goes from nothing to everything. Like it goes.
He's rewarded, and
yes. That's not at all what EVPs are like. EVPs are largely gathering lots of noise and then trying to filter through it and find a little bit of signal in there. And you might. I think that's why I think people tend to be very skeptical of it, is because it's too much. There's ambiguity. What's the source? And it can have multiple meanings. These little messages, these little snippets. Everybody who the message in the movie, it was like, oh, that explains everything. That was the message that she was going to send me from the other side, or he was going to tell me something, or I had one question and that's the answer. And then he's got one question, a big one. What happened to my wife? And he never gets the answer, really.
Yeah. Comes back and it says hot dog water or whatever it was.
Yeah. Well, it makes me think of this Simon and Garfunkel. There was the boxer where they say a man hears what he wants to hear and he disregards the rest.
Yep.
I think it's really, just hearing what you want to hear
every week,
kind of
every week.
Hits and misses and hearing something
Sylvia
that
Brown
seems
say
relevant.
something like that.
Probably, I think it's the kind of thing that's
take what you want and disregard the rest.
Yeah,
like
take what you.
I think what she said. The kid's dead.
Behind. Yeah, which
get your
thyroid
checked.
Yeah, which I think is the basis of the new age in general. To pick and choose what you like, and how you're cherry picking. What you want to believe in, and what you want to incorporate into your own personal theology. So I mean that's absolutely what it's all about.
Buffet.
Yeah. Did you find that quote?
Well, I've got the quote that was first off, the one that was at the beginning of the movie. Says, nobody knows whether our personalities pass on to another existence or sphere, But if we can evolve an instrument so delicate as to be manipulated by our personality as it survives in the next life, such an instrument ought to record something. Thomas Edison, 1928.
So
So
that was taken from the Scientific American article.
that was American Magazine in
Okay.
1920.
Yeah, because I remember that the date was wrong on that. But certainly the way they used that was to kind of push the whole idea that this was a true story.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the actual quote is it would have worked for them as well. So why they had to change, still put quotation marks around it and attribute to him when it's not exactly what he said. You know, he said, "For my part, I am inclined to believe that our personality hereafter will be able to affect matter. If this reasoning be correct, then if we can evolve an instrument so delicate as to be affected or moved or manipulated, whichever term you want to use, by our personality as it survives in the next life, such an instrument, when made available, ought to record something." So yeah, the thing is a lot of people think he was making a joke, as we know from the Edison Historical Society. I can't remember what it's actually called. That there is absolutely no notes. Now there was a man fairly recently that believed he got a copy of Edison's diary in some bookstore in France that had pages that were missing from other published versions of the diary that
Oh,
talk
amazing.
about this device. But yes, it's not in anywhere else, and the Historical Society doesn't have anything on it.
Well, yeah, they said
So
they had
yeah, that's
millions of
believable.
pages of documents. So
Hmm.
why would they be missing, two, three pages out of millions? It
Right.
again, just people pushing the theory.
Yeah.
Maybe a kind of pious fraud thing
Well,
It's
here's
a
an
it's
interesting
would
thing.
it's a
believe.
wax cylinders. Mary had a little lamb, and I believe the dead can talk to us from beyond.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, there was an article in 1933 after his death in Modern Mechanics magazine. And they say that there was a secret demonstration in his darkened laboratory with several scientists present.
Wait a minute. Darkened laboratory,
Darkened
Thomas
laboratory.
Edison. That
Uh-huh.
seems unlikely. So
Well, unlikely because
Sounds atmospheric.
he knows how to turn on a light. So,
he certainly does.
but it says Edison set up a photoelectric cell, a tiny pencil of light coming from a powerful lamp. So it wasn't that dark.
I guess not.
Bored through the darkness and struck the active surface of this cell, where it was transformed instantly into a feeble electric current. Any object, no matter how thin, transparent, or small, would have caused a registration on the cell if it cut through the beam. The team of scientists spent hours closely watching Edison's prototype for any sign of movement from beyond, but none came. Still, Edison maintained his belief that some form of afterlife may exist. Months after the 1920 article, the inventor added to his theories on what constitutes life in an interview with a New York Times. Edison explained he believed the human body to be composed of, 100 trillion infinitesimally small life units, like a swarm of bees, he has said. And all together, they create, the human mind. And so when we die, all these bees go out into the ether, so to speak. So he was really kind of getting some, I'll say it, crazy ideas there toward the end of his life. So,
Well, yeah, I think there's several theories about that he was, having fun with journalists as well, that he liked to pull the wool over their eyes and to trick
mhm,
them. And that also, perhaps as he was getting older, he was experiencing some dementia.
mhm,
It's hard to say, but it's not like he actually created any kind of device. There's no
yeah.
kind of proof that he created a device other than this quote, which has been
It's
changed over the years
too
too.
bad, because then we could know him as Thomas Dedison, and that would be a lot more funny.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely. But yeah,
But
I mean,
certainly people who
for this
believe
article,
love to.
sorry,
Sorry,
go
I was just going to
ahead.
say, certainly people who believe in things like EVP, they love to invoke him because he has such an amazing reputation as a true scientist, and yeah, I mean that's certainly been bandied about a lot by believers.
Well, Chris Moon did rename the Franks box to be Thomas Edison's phone to the dead.
mm,
Um, and which had nothing to do with Thomas Edison. But yeah, it's
It's
interesting. 'Cause he
also,
died-
did they have a mobile version, the die phone?
Yes, yes. Now, he died in October of 1931, and then 2 years later, this article comes out after he can't defend himself or confirm that this secret little thing, with scientists got together and played around in the dark. So I don't know if it's believable. It's nice that the article didn't at least say, oh, and they contacted, everybody else that they could contact from the other side.
Well,
But,
if it is true, call me.
we're waiting. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So everybody, listen to this episode multiple times to see if you can hear any response from Thomas Edison. Thomas, are you with us?
Mary and a little lamb. I swear I heard something just now. I don't know.
Yeah, you sounded
Hang on.
just like him. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that's how he sounds. Hang on.
So any final,
See, I've got one of
final
these.
thoughts on?
What's
See,
that?
this is a PKE meter from
What?
Ghostbusters.
Oh, it's so tiny. I thought they would be bigger.
Yeah, well, no, it's like the iPhone. It's gotten smaller, and then it got bigger, and then it got smaller.
I got you.
It's yeah, this little thing can detect if there's anything here.
When it becomes engorged with spirits.
Yeah. So seems to be working. So yeah, when we listen back, we'll have to see if Thomas comes through, and it may take multiple listenings. So be prepared, everybody, to listen to it multiple
Yeah, and
times.
make sure you've been deprived of sleep and had a few drinks, and
Yes.
you'll
And
hear something.
Yep.
This is
do
such
it
a
that
weird
way.
episode. I've been coughing. I've been crying. I've been coughing so much, and my tongue feels like it's made out of hamburger meat. This is going to be one like it just feels. This is horrible. This movie is cursed.
Yeah, this movie made you sick.
Yes.
This is what happened.
I believe it.
Any
It's-
final thoughts on the
well,
movie?
I thought it was interesting that Michael Keaton, we saw 2 different interviews with him and talking about the movie. And in one of them, now he said that he had never heard of this phenomena before.
You've never heard of this movie. I don't remember that one. That never happened. It's like-
But he, when they were telling him about it and playing him, these EVPs, he got very interested. But it was kind of a thing, that question came up. If you lost someone and you could make contact with them through this, would you? And in one of the interviews, he's like, well, how could you not? Of course you're going to want to. And then in another interview, it was a little more personal, and he said, I don't think I would. He's like, I don't think I would, because that little bit of contact would not be enough. And I would lose my life to it, because I would just become obsessed. And it's a great point, and it's, I think, the biggest takeaway from this movie, other than it doesn't require a rewatch, is simply the fact that, pay attention to the living, stay here with us.
Well,
and
I think
while
there's
you
another
can.
interesting point that he made in the interviews too, and that is that he's extremely picky about the films that he appears in. So maybe the case for other movies, but maybe not so much this one.
Well,
If there-
and I think here's a big problem, is
Yeah.
that they don't get to see the final cut until it's already done. They don't have a
Right.
say in the final cut. So he's filming all these scenes that to him are like, wow, this is going to be scary. This is going to be great. And then the final cut, it can be a real pity, because like I say, a lot about the movie was fine. I mean, it had a good budget, so it was filmed well. At times the
performed
directing
well.
was good. It was performed well. Yeah,
A lot of people went and saw it, even though critics didn't like it.
Well, yeah, the critics
Did really
have like a Rotten Tomatoes like 7%. It's like, it's not good. But the I was thinking though that maybe I'm not thinking. Maybe I forgot.
No. What you're going to say is going to come through in the replay of this.
Probably. What the hell was I going to say?
Yeah.
If there was a curse on this film, it's not that people die. It's that everybody except Michael Keaton now only works in television. Everybody's been kicked out. You don't get to do movies anymore after doing that. No, right.
Maybe
No,
no
right.
more.
I don't trust you anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot
Look,
of these people
You had one job and you no more. Yep,
I'm
I
so
agree.
glad that I saw it, because I mean, it is, a very well-known, iconic film. Here we are interested in EVPs, this kind of thing. It's really, just within our wheelhouse. So I'm glad that I watched it, but it was certainly disappointing. And as we said from the outset, watching that trailer, I had higher expectations.
Trailer was great. Yeah, if you guys want to go and watch the trailer instead of the movie, you'll get.
Oh, I love the trailer. The
Take
trailer
2 minutes
holds
of your
up.
time.
It holds up well. I really like the trailer.
Yeah.
And I have not seen White Noise 2, but it doesn't deal with EVPs. It deals with NDEs. So
Yes.
I guess if they had been successful, they would have continued to do all the 3-letter acronyms related to this sort of stuff.
FBIs
So,
and
right, exactly.
CIAs. You know, the thing is that I wonder how close White Noise 2 is to Flatliners, because that was basically NDEs. So
Yeah, I don't know. I'm very curious about it, almost to the point of watching it, but we'll see.
not quite. So, if you enjoy this video, like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Tell all your friends. Watch it multiple times because of the EVPs that may come out. And help us out on patreon.com/monstertalk. And there is some special content that you'll get if you sign up for that. Was that well said enough? Blake, do you agree with everything I said there?
I just want to apologize for coughing and crying through this whole thing. Neither of which were
The movie will do that to you.
But
Just,
that's how
yeah,
it feels. Yeah,
the movie. Yeah. Well, thank you to everyone for joining us to watch this. And yeah, certainly do go back, and if you haven't seen it yet, the Monster Talk Live episode on EVPs, and really gives the movie context as well.
I think so too. So,
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Okay.
We'll see you guys later.
See you later.